to Jackie Unfiltered ASMR, your ultimate destination for soothing ASMR experiences. Welcome to tonight's ASMR session. It's story time, and the story is called The Lantern Keeper. I hope you stay and enjoy. Before I start, would you please subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and like this story and give it a heart or a smiley? Thanks. It's important for the algorithm. And if my channel doesn't get much attention or traction soon, I'll sadly be leaving in early 2025. Let's begin. The Lantern Keeper by Jackie Unfiltered. The fog rolled in thick as a blanket, a creeping chill that turned Susie's breath into clouds as she hurried along the dark trail with her younger brother, Ronan. Every Halloween, Grammy told them ghost stories, stories that felt so real. They'd swear they could hear whispers just outside the window. But this year, the stakes felt higher, darker. Grammy was waiting for them at the old family cabin, deep in the woods. Susie had warned Ronan not to fall behind, but the shadows seemed to twist around them, almost alive, as if pulling them deeper into the trees. She glanced over her shoulder to check on him, but only saw his shadowy outline, barely visible in the mist. "Aren't we lost?" Ronan asked. "No," she lied, her voice wavering. She wasn't sure. They should have reached Grammy's by now. The trail felt wrong, stretching longer than it ever had before, and the trees seemed to close in tighter with each step. Then they heard it, the faint chime of a lantern swinging. The rhythmic sound of metal creaking sent a jolt through her spine. "Grammy," she called out, though it came out barely above a whisper. The lantern light wavered somewhere up ahead, soft and beckoning. Shadows danced in its glow. Susie quickened her steps, but the light seemed to grow farther away, as if retreating just out of reach. And something about the light, its dull, sickly glow, made her stomach churn. "Susie, wait up," Ronan cried. She grabbed his hand, pulling him close. The fog parted slightly, and there, standing by the side of the trail, was an old man in a long, tattered coat. The lantern swayed in his hand. "Grammy sent me to guide you the rest of the way," he said, his voice deep. like the rumble of distant thunder. Susie glanced at Ronan, who clung to her arm, eyes wide. Everything in her screamed to turn back, to run. But they were lost, and the cabin seemed farther with every step. "Where's Grammy?" she asked, her voice barely audible. The man didn't answer. He just turned and started down the trail, his footsteps eerily silent. The fog swallowed the path behind them as they followed, and Susie felt the chill of 1,000 unseen eyes watching them from the trees. Ronan clutched her hand tightly, his fingers ice cold. The old man's lantern swayed as they walked, casting strange shadows that writhed and flickered along the ground. It illuminated little of the path, but enough to keep them from tripping. Every so often, the man would hum a low tune, something haunting, almost familiar, yet twisted. Finally, Susie couldn't stand the silence any longer. "Do you know Grammy well?" she asked, hoping to break the tension. "Oh, I know her well enough," the man replied with a strange smile. "We go way back." "Way back," Ronan echoed, confusion flickering across his face. The man stopped, turning to face them fully. His eyes glowed, pale and empty. "Yes," he said slowly, "back to when she, too, was a young girl, and she got lost in these very woods." Susie felt her blood run cold. Grammy had never mentioned getting lost before. But then again, Grammy had always warned them about the woods, telling them to stay on the path and never, ever stray after dark. A chill ran down her spine, and she pulled Ronan closer. We should go back," she stammered. "Grammy's probably waiting." But the man just chuckled. "Oh, there's no going back now." And as if on cue, the fog thickened, swirling around them in a suffocating embrace. Susie felt a sharp pain in her chest, like cold fingers closing around her heart. She looked down, and to her horror, she saw shadows creeping up her arms, thin tendrils happening around her skin. Ronan's voice was high and panicked. "Hold on to me, Ronan," she cried, trying to shake off the shadows that were wrapping around her like vines. But it was too late. The darkness tightened its grip, pulling them toward the man, whose grin had grown wide and twisted, exposing teeth sharp as broken glass. "Help!" Ronan cried, his voice barely breaking through the muffling fog. A voice, soft and familiar, cut through the haze. Susie, Ronan, Grammy's voice. The shadows wavered, loosening their grip. The man's grin twisted into a sneer, and his lantern flickered, casting an eerie, dying light. But then the fog parted, and there she was, Grammy, standing at the edge of the trail, her face fierce and determined. "Run," she shouted. "Don't look back. Run to me." Susie didn't need to be told twice. She grabbed Ronan, and they tore away from the man, running down the path. As he chased behind them, they could hear the heavy thud of footsteps closing in. They could almost feel the man's cold breath on their necks. "Faster," Grammy urged. Her figure grew clearer as they ran, and the warmth of her presence seemed to slice through the fear. With a final burst of speed, they broke free from the fog and collapsed into Grammy's arms. She wrapped them tight, her grip iron strong, and whispered words they couldn't quite understand, words that felt ancient and powerful. When Susie finally dared to look back, the man was gone, but his lantern flickered in the fog, hanging from a tree branch, its glow faint and fading. "What was that?" Ronan whispered, his voice trembling. Grammy pulled them close, her expression grave. "The lantern keeper," she murmured, "a spirit who collects lost souls in the woods. I escaped him once, long ago, but he's always been waiting, looking for more." They clung to her as she led them back to the cabin, the warmth of its lights spilling onto the porch. When they were safe inside, Grammy locked the door, bolting it tight. "Grammy," Susie whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Why didn't you tell us?" Grammy's gaze was distant, lost in some memory. "Because some things are better left forgotten, child. But he remembers." They sat in silence by the fire, listening to the crackling wood, the only sound in the dark night. But outside, in the distance, Susie thought she saw a faint glow, bobbing in the fog, a lantern swinging in the night. I hope you enjoyed the story. Happy Halloween to you all. Thank you for listening. Good night, and sweet dreams to you.